of Digital Darwin, joining us. Mr. Bajaj, thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us about this very important matter. I think, firstly, what we want to know is how exactly does the concept of fair use apply to AI companies like OpenAI when we talk about using copyrighted materials for training?
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Ayesha. It's great that we are covering this particular topic at this moment, because I think everyone is being touched by this generative AI. Everyone has started understanding what exactly this ChatGPT and OpenAI is. So these particular models, if we see, and OpenAI is not the only model which is currently doing this kind of work. It includes work from Google, from many other companies. These particular models are trained on massive amounts of data and massive amounts of information, which includes huge data sets which are publicly available, privately available. Of course, OpenAI, it started as a non-profit organization, and hence it was consuming a lot of information from the internet, which is publicly available, and hence there was not as much of an issue of proprietary at that time, because it was not for profit. Now, since it turned for profit, the information that it has been collecting, and there are copyrights which are applicable to all that particular content, is something where there is a concern that OpenAI and the organizations like OpenAI, which includes many other generative AI models, are profiting from not legally obtaining the copyrighted material. Right? So that's where the concern is. Of course, from OpenAI's perspective, OpenAI was also challenged by the New York Times in December last year. And as a response to that particular suit as well, OpenAI mentions that because the material is publicly available, and there are a lot of other precedences which are there in legal recourse, where the training, which is based on publicly available information, can then be used for retraining other purposes, because this is not simply getting published as such.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the argument of licensing is also coming into play when it comes to the companies who are part of this lawsuit. But how do AI models differentiate between licensed and unlicensed content during training, considering that's what they're using, and that's what OpenAI is also saying is part of fair use?
Right. So, from a licensing perspective, of course, for a lot of published material, mostly, let's say, the textbooks, etc., that particular material that's licensed material, and that is something where the licenses are taken for coaching or for training these particular models, but the lawsuits which are coming up now, which are primarily from the media organizations, where the articles are written, which cannot be reproduced as such because they are under copyright. But then there is no such the law does not frame very clear rules about what can be done for training on these particular copyrighted material or copyrighted articles. Because remember, OpenAI is not publishing these particular material. Of course, you can then go and search or create abstracts out of that. You can even learn on a writing pattern of a particular author to understand how that particular author is writing, and then create your own content in that particular similar way. So it's not reproduction, but it is learning. It is similar to something where you and I start following a particular author look at what their writing pattern is, and based on that, we learn how that is done, and then we start producing material, right? So that's where
Okay. That's a pretty interesting
that's where
analogy,
the thin
actually.
line between learning and training, or reproducing and training is.
Okay. So how do you think this lawsuit could possibly shape public perception when it comes to AI technology, which is becoming even more popular day by day, especially with new companies coming into the fray? But when we talk about the perception of AI technology in regards to ethical use of content, which is, I think, one of the key matters when it comes to this discussion, how do you think the public's perception is going to change?
So I think the in long term, because these particular models are here to stay. Of course, there is a lot of work which is going on. Plus, there are a lot of business use cases for good which are being built on these particular models. So they are going to stay. But the perception in public remains, of course, that they are picking up material from the public sources, but there has to be some kind of compensation that would need to be given to the lawful owners of that particular content. In long run, there would have to be a mechanism in which these particular models, or the organizations, the startups which are creating these models, would have to share some kind of profits with the legal producers of that particular content. But again, the problem statement remains that
Okay.
how would you differentiate or would create certain lines on what kind of content it has used, because it is using billions and billions of written material. So if you see the OpenAI models, which include, let's say, a 7 billion model, or a 24 billion model, or a 1 trillion model, parameter model, is consuming data like anything, and you cannot no, you'll not be able to say and differentiate that how and what part of content and what will be the rightful compensation for that content which has been used. So
Okay, so
but
bouncing off of what you were just saying, yeah.
please go ahead.
Sorry, do continue.
No, so
You can
what
continue and then I'll ask you.
Thanks, Aisha. So what I wanted to put across is that probably in the long term, there will have to be very specific areas where either the authors or the content owners would have to say that my material, though public, cannot be used for training, and hence these models will not be able to consume that particular content if that particular if that declaration is not there and it is available in public, then it's a fair game again. Then the models can consume that particular data.
All right, now bouncing off of what you've just highlighted, when it comes to trends, what kind of trends do you foresee when it comes to copyright law as it relates to AI tech, digital content creation, also what we talk about when it comes to fair use of the content by AI tech?
So copyright rules today state that you cannot reproduce that particular material. Can you infer
Okay.
from that particular material? There is nothing as such, right? So you can always infer something from a material which is copyrighted, and you can create your own your inferences. You can then put something there, and you can also then give references that where that particular inference has come from. So if these particular models, because they are declaring that they are consuming material from what sources, if those sources are declared, and it is very clearly provided that what is the volume of content that has been used from those particular sources, then probably those
Yes.
it'll be fair within those particular copyright rules. But yes, because this is a very new problem statement within the copyright rules, it'll have to be re-looked at, and probably the laws would have to be tweaked to ensure and to see that how the copyright material can be used for training these kind of material, and what kind of compensation would then have to be given to the sources from which this particular training has been used.
Absolutely. Mr. Bajaj, thank you so much for taking out the time, discussing this with us, giving us your expertise when it comes to everything that's taking place as far as AI is concerned. Now, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see the ramifications of these lawsuits as well on the landscape, especially when it comes to copyright laws, which we've just discussed. But once again, we'll wrap up with this. So thank you once again for taking out the time discussing this with us.
Thank you so much, Aisha.